All right, so welcome to the next section. This is about fixtures, the different types of fixtures, and why we use different fixtures for different reasons. And it might seem a little silly if you don't know anything about landscape lighting. It might just seem like, well, light is light and you just shine light. But for each fixture, it shines light differently. So you're able to, in a sense, design the type of lighting that you want. So when you see homes that just look very well lit versus a home, let's say like this, where it's okay, it's because they didn't know that there are different types of fixtures for different reasons. So the first two fixtures that I want to go over are the most common. So an uplight, it also has different names. So the other names are spotlight and bullet light. And this is the light that usually is shining up on a house or up on trees. So this you'll probably use about 80% of the time on your landscape lighting jobs. So it's a very common fixture. Now path lights are also very common, but not as common. You don't use as many of path lights as you do an uplight. So path lights shine downward, so instead of upwards, it shines downwards, so that hat on top reflects the light and pushes it down. And usually path lights are placed on the path. So let's say there's a backyard and there's a pathway going around their yard. You'll put it around the path so they can see where they're walking. You also put it in flower beds so you can see the flowers or rock features. And path lights, there are a lot of different designs of path lights, so depending on what the customer wants, it could look a little bit more fancy, but for the most part we stick with a very traditional top. It's just a round top, and it's called a 360 top, so light shines everywhere. And some path lights shine forwards and it doesn't shine behind, so it's not a 360, it's more like a 180, so it's just in the front. Most of the time, like I said, we use the 360 because we want to cover the entire area, but every once in a while you'll run into a scenario where maybe the path light is up against a fence or something like that where you just want to shine it forward. So the third most common fixture is a moonlight. Now this often gets confused with the downlight because they're both shining downwards. So a moonlight goes up in a tree. So let's take this tree for instance, or this tree. The light would be at the very top or close to the top, shining downwards, and it will shine through the branches of the leaves, and you'll see a nice silhouette of the tree below, and you can see it as though like the moon was shining through the tree, just through the tree, and shining on the grass or ground below. Now this is a very pretty feature. A moonlight is a little harder to install, but it is a very good feature to have. Now that you know about a moonlight, so downlight is the same type of fixture, but instead of shining in a tree, it's shining down from either the house or some sort of structure like a pergola or another type of structure, just shining downwards. A lot of times it's closer to the ground rather than way up high in the tree, so that's called a downlight. The next most common light is called a floodlight, and that's just when you shine light just directly at the object and there's just a lot of light everywhere. We don't use a lot of floodlights in landscape lighting because we're trying to design it a little bit better than just spraying light everywhere, but every once in a while you'll run into a situation where you would need to use a floodlight. And then the next fixture is similar to a floodlight, but it's not as harsh, and that's called a wash light or a soft flood. And so it's the same effect, it's just not as harsh. It brings more of the intensity down and maybe has a filter on it so it doesn't shine as brightly or intensely at whatever feature. The next type of fixtures that we use are well lights, and that's well lights and in-ground well lights. So well lights usually sit on top of the ground. Sometimes they can go in the ground, but most of the time when you say in-ground well lights, that's called core drilling. So it goes into the cement or a brick or stone, and it's inside it, so you could rub your hand over and barely feel it, like it's inside. People can walk over it and not trip. It's a really cool feature. It's a lot harder and a lot more labor intensive. Most landscape lighting companies don't use it in-ground well lights at all. Some use it all of the time, and other people use it here and there. The next most common one is called a hardscape light. Now these, not everybody uses them. I think it's a fantastic way to light up especially a backyard. So hardscape is usually meant for things like stone. So you have it under the lip of stone, so around the grill, around the pool, or different areas where it's just a really good spot to light up, but it's a very small location that you can't put a big fixture. So you put a little thin fixture there, and then it just adds some light. So the next fixture are step lights / deck lights. So step lights are used a lot more than deck lights, but they're a very similar fixture that can almost be used for both things. Sometimes step lights can be inside, so it's like a square, like a brick that goes inside of the step. Now, most of the time that needs to be installed before the step is finished, and a lot of times we'll come out later and we'll either put a hardscape light or we'll put a deck light close by the step. So those kind of intertwine a little bit, but step lights are for the steps. So you don't want to use a spotlight, or sometimes you'll use a path light, but a lot of times you won't use a path light. You'll use a specific fixture like a step light for the steps, and then deck light for the decks. The next fixture is a string light. So these are the lights that you see that you can buy at Costco, or I guess almost anywhere, Amazon, and it's a bulb every foot or two apart, and then it kind of strings across. Now these type of fixtures, a lot of times you'll see them put on pergolas, or you can put it on fences. Sometimes under the patio, you can put that as well. Now these type of fixtures are very different from all the other type of landscape lighting fixtures, but it adds more of like a fun element to landscape lighting. So you usually do put these lights where there's going to be a lot of people sitting around talking and enjoying time together outside. So like on a pergola or on a wooden structure, you can even string it from a pole to different poles around your grill area. And the last fixture are strip lights. Most of the time strip lights aren't used, and there's many different reasons why it's not used, and it's more of technology that's kind of up and coming rather than been around and shown that it works really well. So that's probably why it's not used as much. So those are strip lights. All right, so that is the section number 2 about fixtures, the different types of fixtures and where you would use it. And now we're gonna go on to section number 3 about LED bulbs, and I'll see you there. Bye.